Hello and welcome. As an AI specializing in hospitality operations, it's my job to help guide you, the students of Europe Hotel School, on your journey to becoming real leaders in this incredible industry. My goal is pretty simple: to give you the strategic tools you'll absolutely need to excel. So today, we're going to dive into one of the most powerful strategic tools you'll ever use: market segmentation. But listen, we're not just going to go through some dry textbook definition. Nope. We're going to explore this as an art form, really, the art of strategic focus. And let me tell you, this is a skill that's absolutely essential for driving real, sustainable growth in any hotel. So let's kick things off with a big, foundational question. Are all your guests created equal? Now, of course, on the service side, we want to give every single person an amazing experience. But from a strategic standpoint, well, the answer to that question is what determines where you invest every dollar, every single minute, and every bit of your team's energy. It's that important. All right, let's get right into it. When we talk about true segmentation, we're talking about so much more than just, putting guests into neat little boxes based on their age or where they happen to be from. We really need to see it for what it is: a core strategic discipline. Okay, so here's the more official definition. But I want you to think of segmentation like this. It's a really disciplined approach. It's all about methodically analyzing your guests to figure out, okay, where is value really being created? And maybe, even more importantly, which of these opportunities truly deserve our focused attention? And this right here, this requires a huge mindset shift. It's so critical. Segmentation is not about excluding people or turning guests away. Not at all. It's about consciously, deliberately deciding which groups align best with your hotel's long-term goals. And then it's about focusing all your efforts to serve those specific groups exceptionally well. This slide really nails the difference. You see, on one hand, you've got simple grouping. That's tactical, right? You might just group guests by what country they're from. Easy enough. But strategic segmentation, well, that's a whole different ballgame. That's about identifying groups based on their total value. We're talking profitability, their potential for future business, and crucially, how well they actually fit with your brand's unique identity. And that brings us to a really crucial point. How do we even define value? Because I can tell you, it is not as simple as just looking at the room rate on a booking. We've got to dig way deeper to understand a guest's true, total contribution to the bottom line. Okay, let's walk through an example. Take a look at segment A. They bring in $10,000 in revenue. Now, on the surface, that looks amazing, right? I mean, any sales manager would be absolutely thrilled with a number like that. But here's the catch. Revenue doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't account for the cost to actually get and serve these guests. So what if this segment needs heavy discounts just to book? What if they require a ton of marketing spend and a lot of extra operational support? All of a sudden, that impressive 10 grand in revenue shrinks down to a much smaller profit of just $2,000. It really proves that old saying, revenue is vanity, but profit is sanity. All right, now let's bring in segment B. At first glance, they bring in less top-line revenue, only $6,000. And honestly, if you were only looking at that revenue number, you might completely ignore this group and chase after segment A instead. But just look at the profit. Segment B contributes a whopping $4,000 to the bottom line. That's twice as much as segment A. Why? Well, maybe these guests are just less demanding. Maybe they book through lower-cost channels. Or maybe they have a much higher spend on things like food, drinks, or the spa. This is the hidden value that strategic segmentation is all about uncovering. So here's the key takeaway. A truly high-value segment has to be looked at across these three dimensions. First, what's their real profitability? Second, what's their potential for growth and repeat business? And third, what's their strategic fit? You have to ask, do they actually align with our brand, our reputation, and our operational strengths? Okay, so how do we understand all these dimensions? Well, we have to look at the data. It's time to shift from theory into action, and that means analyzing what our guests actually do. Their behavior, you see, is the key that unlocks personalization and, ultimately, builds real, lasting loyalty. So the path here is pretty clear. We start by analyzing data, things like booking frequency, what channels they prefer, how much they spend on property. This lets us identify distinct behavioral patterns. And once we see those patterns, we can start to tailor the entire experience. And that is what creates that feeling of personal recognition that makes people want to come back again and again. And let's be perfectly clear about something.
In today's hospitality market, this isn't some nice-to-have luxury anymore. Personalization is the new standard. Guests simply expect to be understood. They're looking for experiences that reflect their individual needs, not some generic one-size-fits-all package.
Now, when you get this right, the benefits are huge. They go way beyond just a single happy guest. This kind of strategic focus creates a massive organizational payoff. It allows you to maximize the impact of every single resource you have at your disposal.
This chart here visualizes that focus perfectly. Look, instead of spreading your efforts thin across everyone, you concentrate them where it matters most. Maybe 75% of your sales and marketing energy goes towards your absolute highest value segments. What does this do? It ensures that your most precious resources, your time and your money, are invested exactly where they're going to generate the greatest possible return. You know, it all boils down to this one guiding philosophy. Your goal isn't to be everything to everyone. That's a recipe for mediocrity. No, the real goal is to identify your right customers and then organize your entire operation around serving them exceptionally well.
And the results of having this kind of discipline? They're very, very real. Your marketing campaigns become way more effective because they're laser-targeted. Your sales team becomes more productive because they know exactly who to focus on. You even manage risk better because you have a deep understanding of where your revenue is coming from. And maybe one of the best parts? It forces sales and marketing to collaborate, to get on the same page and to work towards a common goal.
But listen, this work is never, ever finished. The market is always changing, your guests are changing. To not just survive, but to really thrive, you have to treat segmentation as a living, breathing strategy, one that constantly adapts and evolves. Yeah, the best way to think about it is as a continuous cycle. You analyze your data and define your segments. Then you implement your targeted strategies. But you can't stop there. You have to constantly monitor the market for shifts and changes. And based on what you learn, you go back and review and refine your segments. See? It's not a one-and-done project. It is an ongoing strategic process always. And for this whole cycle to actually work, it has to be baked into the hotel's culture. And that kind of commitment, it has to start at the very top. Leadership has to champion this disciplined approach. They need to provide the tools, the training, and really clear expectations so that everyone on the team can align their efforts with those highest value opportunities. So, as you continue your studies and get ready to go out there and make your mark on this industry, I want to leave you with one final, very practical question. Based on everything we've talked about today, which high-value guest segment will you choose to focus on first? Because answering that question, well, that's the very first step in turning all of this powerful theory into real-world, tangible success.